Good morning. Nope, still turning. Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you have had a wonderful week. I miss you all. I'm enjoying our Thursdays where we get to run and have some fun and enjoy our laughter together. We ended last Sunday finishing up with Joseph's life. Joseph had a adventurous life, a hard life that ended in a good life for him and his family, if we remember that. What book were we in? Does anybody remember? It was the book of Genesis. And now we are going into the book of Exodus. And who can tell me, is that Old Testament or New Testament? I bet you all are hollering out Old Testament and you'd be right. Well, like I said, we're in the book of Exodus. Now remember, we're still in Egypt at this point. And we need to remember how many Hebrews Joseph's family moved into Egypt. And there were about 70 of them. So just think about that, 70 people into an entire nation. All right. Remember, they were all part of Joseph's family. But now we are 200 years later, approximately. There's a new Pharaoh. Many pharaohs had come before him, but this was a new one who did not know anything about Joseph. He didn't know about Joseph's stories. He didn't know about the great things that Joseph had done for Egypt. And he started to look around and he thought, there are a whole lot of Hebrews in our nation. And he began to panic. What if they joined forces together against Egypt? That did not make him happy. It did not make him happy at all. He thought about war, he thought about what they could do, and he began to treat them very badly. And he began to make them work harder and harder as Egyptian slaves. Now, think about it. If you have somebody you don't want to be against you, why in the world would you start treating them badly? Well, he did. But this did not stop the Hebrews. They continued to have more children, so the king made their lives even harder. He made them work harder and he tried to make them bitter people. They still continued to multiply greatly. Well, then the king decided, let's go to a different method here. And he went to the midwives. Now, a midwife is somebody who helps a woman to deliver a baby. And he went to these midwives and he said, if a boy is born, kill it. If it's a girl, you can let it live. Well, these midwives, these Hebrew women, they knew who God was, and they knew that God would not be happy if all these baby boys were killed. Well, do you think this made the Pharaoh happy? No, it did not. But you know what? The midwives were more worried about pleasing God than they were about pleasing the Pharaoh. And guess what? The Hebrew people multiplied even more. So now Pharaoh made a law, a command to all his people saying, every son who is born must be tossed in the river, but you may let the girls live. Well, this is not a happy time for a lot of people. But let's go back into a little history now. The house of Levi. Now Levi was a brother to Joseph. He was one of Jacob's sons. Now he's been gone a long time, so he's not there, but they continue with the name, the house of Levi. So this is his family many years down the road. Now Joseph's been gone many years, Levi's been gone many years, and now again, there's a marriage. So one of the people in the house of Levi is getting married. Well, the lady of the marriage has this beautiful baby boy, and she hid him for 3 months. Remember, what was she supposed to do? She was supposed to toss him in the river. Well, she could not see herself tossing this beautiful little baby boy into the river, so she hid him. When he got to be about 3 months old, she realized she can't hide him much longer. So she took that little baby boy to the river and she built a basket. In the Bible, they call it a little ark out of bulrushes, which would be vines and branches from little trees. She put pitch on it, which if you've ever touched a pine tree when the sap is running and that pitch is sticky, well, that's what she put, pitch and asphalt on it to make it waterproof. And she took that beautiful baby boy and she placed him in that basket. Then she took the basket and she placed it in the reeds by the riverbank. It had to have broken her heart. Can you imagine her having to float that little basket with her beautiful baby boy down the river? Well, these rivers were teeming with crocodiles too, so the fear that must have been in that mama had to have been horrendous. But that little baby boy had a sister. Her name was Miriam, an older sister, and she stood by the water and she watched to see what was happening to her brother. Well, just down the river, the Pharaoh's daughter was bathing. She was there with many of her handmaidens, and as they walked along the river with her, well, she looked down and she saw this basket, and she sent her maid to get it. They brought it to her, and she opened it. And what did she see when she opened that basket but that beautiful baby boy? And he was crying. She knew he was a Hebrew baby. I'm assuming she knew probably by the clothes he was wrapped in or the blanket he was wrapped in. But she felt such compassion for that baby as he cried. Well, guess who was still watching? His big sister Miriam. And she went to the Pharaoh's daughter and she said, "Can I bring you a Hebrew woman who can help you nurse this baby?" And the Pharaoh's daughter agreed. So she went, and guess who she got? She brought her mama, the baby boy's mama. And she brought her to this Pharaoh's daughter. And the Pharaoh's daughter said, "Take my baby, nurse him, help him, and I will pay you a good wage." So here she is. She's put this baby in the river like she didn't want to, but she did it. He's now been brought into Pharaoh's home, and she gets to take care of him. She gets to nurse him, and she gets to see that baby boy live. Well, she did this, and later she brought this baby back to the Pharaoh's daughter after he had grown and was strong, brought him to, and he became the Pharaoh's grandson. The Pharaoh's daughter now had a son. Anybody out there guess what this baby boy's name was? Moses. That's right. And that name Moses means because I drew him out of the water, because that's what she did. Well, let's talk about a problem that Moses' mama had. She knew she couldn't hide that little baby, that beloved little baby from the Egyptians. She couldn't hide him forever. So she showed great wisdom and faith by literally obeying Pharaoh's command. She put her son into the Nile River, but she did it in a way that preserved his life. She trusted God to look after him. We don't know whether Moses' mom hoped that the Pharaoh's daughter would find the baby. We have no idea of knowing what she was thinking. But after doing everything she could for her son, she was willing to leave him in God's hands. Boys and girls, that is what I want you to take away from today's story. The story of Moses and his mama shows how we need to trust in God, even when things seem hopeless. God has you, He loves you, and He wants good to happen to you. But you have to do your part too. You have to trust Him, you have to love Him, and you have to follow His commands. Now, Israel had been delivered from famine along with Egypt and the surrounding nations through a dream that was interpreted by Joseph. And God had prepared him as a young boy. Israel now had about 200 years of peace, and they multiplied. Let's talk about those numbers that we said. They came into Egypt with 70 people, and now their numbers were at 2.5 million people. Then came this Pharaoh who didn't know what Joseph had done. He didn't know his story. He didn't know all the good that he had done for Egypt and all the people. And guess what? The Pharaoh who was in office when Joseph was there learned about Joseph's God. He learned about our God. Well, this new Pharaoh, 200 years later, he didn't know who God was. He didn't know that God was preparing a deliverer for the Hebrew people. He used a young boy, Joseph, and now he's prepared a baby, this beautiful baby boy, Moses. He's prepared him to deliver his people. Now, think about that. A lot of times we say, oh, they're just kids, they're just boys and girls. But guess what? God uses boys and girls to do great things for his kingdom. He may not do it until you're a little older, but he grows you up in his word. He grows you up and he loves you. And if you follow him, he will do great and many things with you too. Well, boys and girls, we're going to stop here now. And next week, tune in and we'll bring you more of Moses' story. Moses as he's all grown up. Boys and girls, I love you. I miss you. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Goodbye.